You're listening to Jesus and a Cup of Joe, the podcast where faith gets real, truth stands tall, and every conversation begins with Jesus. Hosted by Royce Bottoms, a veteran, minister, and everyday believer. This is where we dive deep into the Word, face life's challenges head on, and keep Christ at the center of it all. So grab your favorite cup of Joe, settle in, and let's walk this journey together. One step, one scripture, one story at a time.
Hey, welcome back to Jesus and a Cup of Joe. I'm glad you're able to join me. Hope and pray you're having a fantastic day. Get you your favorite cup of Joe, get settled in, and let's get ready to go. If this is your first time here, I'm grateful that you found your way to this podcast. Whether you're listening in your car or in your kitchen or for a long walk, I hope and pray that this podcast speaks to you. Because remember, you're not here by accident. So we're going to continue on chapter 5 of my journey. This chapter just didn't change my life. It changed on who I was going to become. So this is the story of Germany. This is the place on a map, a season in my life, or a classroom for my soul. So Germany just wasn't the first duty station. It was a place where I grew up. Not in age, not by understanding, but in identity, purpose, or in soul. See, I arrived in Mannheim as a young soldier with jump wings on my chest, more questions in my heart than I knew what to ask. I thought I had become everything that the Army wanted me to become. I thought I was sent to Germany to do work, to serve, to do my job, to spend my time and then leave. But see, God was already ahead of me on everything that was going on. See, Germany wasn't a backdrop of my story. It was a character. It was a force. It was a teacher. And maybe you're listening today and you're in a season like that, a place that you didn't choose, a chapter that you didn't plan, or a road that you didn't expect to walk. But somehow it changes you. So I tell you what, let's walk that road together. See, up until the point that I got to Germany, everything that I knew, the Southern culture, the food, the habits, the roads, familiar faces, it was fine. But Germany cracked it wide open. See, I still remembering walking through the German street markets. These were like cobblestone streets that were underneath my shoes. There was wooden stalls that lined up like postcards, fresh bread that you could smell in that air. People were speaking a language that sounded like thunder and melody at the same time. Sharp sounds, rolling rhythms. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I could feel what they were saying. See, I was standing there surrounded by all of this German sounds and smells, trying to figure it all out. The days that we went into town, went into Mannheim or into the surrounding towns, were the days that we got to really just grow and learn, to be able to understand what all was around us. See, the world was much bigger than I ever imagined. In my corner of the world has been really small when you look at it. See, there's something humbling about realizing that you're normal in a very large world. And what I mean by that is, when you think your surroundings, where you're from, how you live, how you grew, you think that's the world, you're in for a rude awakening once you start realizing all the other cultures that are out there. See, Germany taught me early, and I believed God used that moment. Moments of awe, the moments of smallness, the moments that remind us of something important, that we don't serve a small God. We serve a God who's bigger than every border, culture, language, or place we ever stood. So before I continue on, let me ask you something. Where has God taken you that made your world feel bigger than your comfort. Now, before Germany, beer was something that most adults drank on the weekends. But see, in Germany, beer is a heritage. It is a culture statement, if you will. Every village, every city, every town has its own brewery. Every pub has the wooden tables worn smooth from decades of elbows and laughters and stories. See, drinking beer in Germany was not about getting drunk. It was about belonging. After a long day of work, you're tired, you're dirty, you wore down, you sat down together, soldiers from Texas, New York, California, even Georgia. We sat with locals and just communicated, shared stories with one another. Different accents, different backgrounds, different lives. But we all came together in those pubs. One of the best memories that I ever had about Mannheim was right after I got there. I remember me and a buddy of mine that I met. We took one of the Strasses, one of the train cars. Some people call them public transportation. They're not. They're not buses. They're the old-fashioned street cars, if you will, that you see in San Francisco, the ones with the power lines and things of this nature. But we took it into town, and we were walking around in the streets of Mannheim, and I was seeing old buildings and new buildings. I was seeing years and years of historical things, landmarks, pressed up against new cultures and new growth for that time period. And I remember seeing the Mannheim University and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. His plaque was there because he studied there as a student. And I remember just standing there thinking, I'm standing in the same university setting that Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a very famous composer that a lot of people know, went to school. See, in Mannheim, just like in most European areas, the streets are either alphabetically or numerical listed. You have A through Z. You have 1 through 50, give or take. And so you may go to A as in Apple Street, go to box, whatever, and there would be a store. Or you go down to R Street and you would find a clothing store, whatever. But it gives you the idea that it was all a grid, laid out as a grid. But one of the other things that I noticed about Mannheim is this. The smells, the food. There was a vendor that was right outside of our base. And this vendor sold schnitzel and pommes frites. And Wiener Schnitzel is like veal. It's lightly breaded and cooked. It's very delicious, especially in a pita bread and the trimmings. And pommes frites are very spicy French fries. That was my staple. Every day I would get schnitzel and pommes frites. But let me go ahead and tell you this. It will put some weight on you if you're not careful. See, the German food, as I said, it surprised me. Bratwursts were grilled on the street corners. Schnitzels were cut thin and usually smothered over gravy. And Jägerschnitzel, I'm telling you, that was the staple. That was the way to eat it. There were tons of German food that I could sit here through this entire episode and share with you. But I wanted you to get a understanding. If you closed your eyes, I wanted you to understand and smell what was being cooked, all of the different foods and the beers and the things of this nature. See, somewhere between all of the kebabs and the bakeries, God was sharing and showing me things that was simple and powerful. That food just wasn't nourishment, it was care. It was like faith. God just didn't feed us the truth. He fed us to preserve us, to show us along the way. See, even in a foreign land, he prepared a table that we all would sit and eat from. So, being in Germany, one of the things that you're never really ready to experience is Christmas time in the German streets. The cities transform into a glowing village of light and music, things that you see on the Hallmark Channel, things that you would see on postcards. There are hand-carved ornaments. There's candles that smell like cinnamon. There's pastries dusted with powdered sugar. The air is so thick with roasted nuts and smoked meats. Snow is falling softly and quietly. Children are laughing. Couples are walking. And the hot spice wine in ceramic mugs warmed your hands in the winter time. My first Christmas in Germany, my mom, who has never flown, who has never been out of the country, decided to come and visit me in Germany. And so that first Christmas, we were able to spend it together to where I could show her around. I believe she shared and stayed about a week and a half with us so I could just show her around. But I wanted her to see Germany in different ways. Now, picking her up from the airport, let me go ahead and set the scene for you. Mannheim is 45 minutes south of Frankfurt. Frankfurt is the international airport. That's where everybody flies in. So I drive up to pick her up. Understand, Frankfurt International Airport is not like your standard airports here in the U.S. You have German Polizei, the police, that is walking around with attack dogs and automatic weapons. So you see these guys walking around, moving around on the streets and inside the airport. So I pick her up. She comes off her flight. I put her in the car, and we're on our way to Mannheim. Now, if you've never been to Europe, there's something you need to know. It's called the Autobahn. The Autobahn is the highway system. The Autobahn in most places have no speed limit. The Autobahn has several lanes. They have a slow, medium, fast, and get out of the way lane. And you're running on average about, I'd say 100 to 120 mile an hour as you're driving. And so if you could imagine my mom's eyes and the look on her face as I'm driving that speed down the highway, but it was normal. It was the way that you drove. It was a part of who you were. And I remember her seeing these sights, saying, "Hey, pull over. Let me get this photo here. Hey, stop the car. Let me get this picture here." And I remember telling her, "We can't do this. It is against the law, unless it's an emergency, for you to stop your car on the Autobahn and pull over to the side. There's rest areas, but you cannot just pull over at any time because you want to, because it's against law." But I digress because I wanted to share that with you because I thought it was funny. And I hope my mom, who may listen to this episode, doesn't get upset or embarrassed, because it was a great time to have her to come see me in Europe. So let me get back to the book. So all of these Christmas things that are going on, they have Christmas markets everywhere. If you can imagine, food, every type of pastry, every type of baked goods you could think of, warm apple wine and spice drinks, snow everywhere, gifts, homemade presents. And I'm talking ornaments, I'm talking figurines, I'm talking cuckoo clocks, everything that you could think of. It was all there. And it just was completely different than what you see here in the States. So now let's shift gears. Let's look at the AFN, the sound of home, the Armed Force Network. It was our lifeline. Football games would play at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We would try to stay up to watch them. Our eyes would be burning. The room would be half awake with soldiers cheering quietly. TV shows were months, if not a year behind in the States. Movies were always on repeat. Military commercials. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share something with you. The Armed Forces Network is comprised of Army and Air Force personnel who put on the news, and they run the TV station. The military-made commercials had the worst acting, the most awkward humor, serious message wrapped up in the cheesiest commercial you could ever imagine. It was on our television. So if you can imagine for a moment, I think I had 4 channels in Mannheim. We had the Armed Forces Network channel. We had 3 German channels. And now the common room, or the day room, where it was just the general hangout with the pool table, we had satellite dish that would pipe in BBC from England. So you had a choice. Armed Forces Network, you could watch movies and TV shows that were 6 months to a year behind. 3 German channels, you could watch old TV shows that you could never understand because it was all dubbed in German, or you could watch the BBC and learn what's going on in England. And I remember my first time I was watching this, I saw Knight Rider, and I heard Kit talk in German, and it was crazy. I didn't understand it. But if you ever get a chance to watch AFN or listen to it or talk to other people about it, just see what they have to say about it. All right. So Germany didn't just change me at once. It changed me quietly. It changed me slowly and through everyday life. Cold mornings on the airfield, quiet nights in the barracks, long walks under the street lamps. Germany taught me a perspective of independence, responsibility, humility, and identity. And somewhere in those quiet moments, I felt something stirring. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was steady. God was coming for my heart. Not with thunder, not with fireworks, but with his presence. See, Germany just didn't build me as a soldier. Germany awakened me as a man. Distance has a way of removing distractions. It reveals on what you can rely on. It exposes the identities that you're rooted in. Germany, I learned that God doesn't need a church pew to speak. He doesn't need a preacher. He doesn't need a perfect setting. He speaks in foreign places, in the loneliness, in your duties, in your responsibilities. God doesn't waste distance. He uses it to draw closer. Even when I didn't realize it, God was preparing me for leadership, for the trials of fatherhood, ministry, and for other purposes in my life. Sometimes God grows you in places that you would never choose to grow. And so you could become that person that he always intended for you to be. Let that sit for a moment and understand that wherever you're at right now, God's working on you. When we look at Psalms 139, 9 and 10, it says, "If I rise on the wings of dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand is guiding me. Your right hand holds me fast." A soldier on foreign soil understands this differently. That is chapter 5 of today's episode from my book. I hope this has touched you, has helped you, or has made you think. If you can think of anyone who may need to hear this, I pray that you will let them know about it. And now, as we get ready to go into chapter 6, we'll talk about the transfer to Spinelli Barracks. We're still in Germany, but I'm being transferred from one duty station to another, which comes with a whole different set of rules and eye-awakening experiences. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope and pray that this touched you, that you're enjoying what you listen to. Please come back next time. And remember, you always start your day with Jesus and a cup of Joe. God bless.